Welcome to our in-depth look at Colombia's astonishing environmental turnaround. In the first quarter of 2025, the nation cut deforestation by 33% compared to the same period last year, preserving over 13,000 additional hectares of precious rainforest. From January through March, forest loss plunged from more than 40,200 hectares to roughly 27,000 hectares, marking the steepest decline ever recorded. But behind these numbers lies a story of collaboration, innovation, and determination. And that's exactly what we'll uncover in this video. Over the next 8 segments, we'll explore how reinforced protection of Amazonian national parks, community-driven monitoring programs, and targeted law enforcement operations combined to stem illegal logging and land grabbing. You'll learn how indigenous and rural communities became frontline guardians of their territories, how government agencies synced efforts across ministries, and which regions achieved the greatest victories and where challenges still loom. We'll shine a light on ongoing threats like unregulated mining and coca cultivation, and preview the strategic meetings and action plans set to cement these gains. Between January and March 2025, Colombia slashed its quarterly deforestation rate by a remarkable 33%, dropping from 40,219 hectares lost in Q1 2024 to just under 27,000 hectares this year. That means over 13,200 hectares of forest, an area larger than Manhattan, were spared from clearing. What makes this downturn historic is not only its scale, but its consistency. Each of the first 3 months registered at least a 30% reduction compared to the year before. In January, forest loss fell by 32%. In February, by 35%, and March saw a 31% decline, collectively marking the steepest quarter-on-quarter improvement on record. These gains translated into preserved biodiversity hotspots, safeguarded carbon sinks, and protected water sources for rural communities. Yet, such significant progress also signals a turning point in Colombia's environmental story, a proof that concerted policy measures, community engagement, and strategic enforcement can yield rapid, measurable results. In the heart of Colombia's rainforest, 3 flagship national parks, Tinigua, Chiribiquete, and Sierra de la Macarena, drove some of the most dramatic gains. Thanks to intensified aerial surveillance, park rangers equipped with satellite-linked tablets and newly deployed drone units, illegal logging incursions plummeted by over 54% compared to last year. Chiribiquete, the country's largest protected area and UNESCO World Heritage Site, saw forest loss drop by 2/3 after the environment. Ministry partnered with indigenous patrol teams to monitor remote river corridors. In La Macarena, ranger-led forest guardians programs enlisted local campesino families in 24/7 community watch rotations, transforming former clear-cut hotspots into high-alert zones. Meanwhile, Tinigua National Park bolstered its ranger force by 40% and introduced rapid response units that can mobilize within hours of an alert, whether from a drone feed or a community tip line. These combined efforts didn't just limit tree felling, they sent a clear message to would-be loggers and land grabbers that Colombia's Amazon parks are no longer easy targets. One of the biggest reasons behind Colombia's recent success is the implementation of a unified and strategic plan led by the national government. Instead of isolated efforts, the country brought together various ministries including environment, defense, and justice alongside military units, prosecutors, and environmental agencies. This teamwork allowed for faster responses to illegal activity, better coordination in field operations, and a stronger legal framework to punish environmental crimes. This plan also prioritized early alerts using satellite data and real-time surveillance tools. When deforestation was detected, rapid intervention teams could be deployed before the damage spread. Meanwhile, local communities weren't left out. They played a central role in reporting illegal land grabbing, often providing crucial tips to enforcement teams. The result? A system where prevention, enforcement, and community involvement came together to create real impact. This level of collaboration marked a shift from reactive approaches to a proactive national movement, a major turning point in Colombia's fight against deforestation has been the growing role of indigenous and rural communities. These local guardians, who have lived in harmony with the rainforest for generations, are now central to conservation efforts, not just as observers, but as active protectors of the land. Community members received training in monitoring techniques, learned to use satellite maps and GPS tools, and were connected to real-time alert systems. Many areas that were once considered deforestation hotspots are now patrolled daily by local forest guardians, who report illegal logging, burning, or land grabs directly to authorities. In addition, agreements were signed between the government and indigenous leaders to ensure their voices were heard in environmental decision-making. These partnerships helped create a culture of shared responsibility, where the forest is no longer just protected by policy, but also by pride and tradition. Despite the progress, Colombia's forests still face serious threats that could undo recent gains. One of the most persistent is the spread of illegal coca plantations, which often leads to the clearing of large forest areas in remote regions. Armed groups involved in drug trafficking use these areas to cultivate coca, frequently driving out local communities and opening new roads into protected lands. Another growing concern is illegal mining. In some parts of the Amazon, especially along riverbanks, unregulated mining operations are destroying habitats, contaminating water sources with mercury, and attracting criminal networks. These activities not only harm the environment, but also pose risks to nearby indigenous and rural populations. Between October 2024 and March 2025, nearly 89,000 hectares of forest were still lost across Colombia, showing that the fight is far from over. Even as deforestation rates drop, these hidden and complex drivers continue to challenge conservation efforts. To back its environmental strategy with real consequences, Colombia has stepped up enforcement like never before. Specialized task forces made up of police, prosecutors, and environmental agencies have been targeting the individuals and groups behind illegal deforestation. These aren't just small-time operators. In several recent cases, authorities arrested key figures linked to organized land grabbing, illegal logging, and mining operations with ties to armed groups. The government also increased the number of environmental prosecutors and strengthened judicial processes to ensure faster, more effective legal action. By holding perpetrators accountable, Colombia sent a powerful message: destroying forests is no longer a crime without punishment. One notable operation in early 2025 led to the capture of several suspects involved in deforesting protected land inside national parks. Their prosecution helped discourage further invasions and showed that even remote regions are now under watch. Still, arrests alone aren't enough. That's why in the next section, we'll look ahead to the next big step: how Colombia plans to maintain and expand these results through long-term action plans across its most vulnerable territories. Looking forward, Colombia is shifting from emergency response to long-term forest protection. Starting in June 2025, the government is hosting a series of regional meetings in cities like Villavicencio, bringing together indigenous leaders, local mayors, environmental agencies, and civil society groups. The goal: to create locally tailored action plans that align with national strategies, but reflect the realities on the ground. These meetings will focus on defining territorial priorities, improving access to sustainable livelihoods, and strengthening community-based forest monitoring. By involving those most affected by deforestation, Colombia hopes to build lasting solutions that don't just stop forest loss temporarily, but prevent it from returning. There's also a renewed push to invest in education, ecotourism, and sustainable agriculture, giving communities economic alternatives to destructive practices. Combined with continued enforcement and improved forest governance, these steps aim to turn Colombia's recent success into a long-term transformation. Colombia's 33% drop in deforestation during the first quarter of 2025 isn't just a national achievement, it's a global milestone. At a time when many countries are struggling to protect their forests, Colombia has proven that a mix of political will, community engagement, and smart enforcement can lead to real, measurable results. This achievement means more than just preserved trees. It represents cleaner air, safer habitats for endangered species, and a stronger buffer against climate change. It also sends a clear message: tropical forest protection is possible, even in regions facing social and economic challenges. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: when local communities, national leaders, and institutions work together with a shared purpose, change can happen quickly. Colombia's story offers hope not only for the Amazon, but for every nation fighting to defend its green frontiers. Colombia's remarkable 33% reduction in deforestation marks a turning point not just for the country, but for the global fight to protect the planet's lungs. This success didn't come from one magic solution, but from many forces moving in harmony. Empowered communities, stronger institutions, better technology, and political commitment. Yet the work is far from done. Ongoing threats like illegal mining, coca cultivation, and armed conflict still test the resilience of Colombia's forests. That's why the next phase is critical. Turning short-term progress into permanent protection through regional plans, economic alternatives, and continued collaboration. Colombia has shown the world what's possible. Now, the challenge is to keep that momentum alive and to inspire others to follow its lead. Because when the Amazon breathes easier, so does the Earth. If this inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Because protecting forests starts with spreading the story.